Just reading over so we can get the other one done in about an hour. Most people want to discuss something about somebody, which I think is very good and beneficial. What's going on, everybody? Assalamu alaikum. Selah. I guess you could say buenas noches. I was laying down and this one was zooming and had me run up and down the stairs chasing him. Anyway, we're going to get into the next part of FLATLANTIS. Pretty interesting. I was just doing some bullet points and some notes. Pretty interesting stuff. Let me touch down a little more. And this is my relaxing movement. This is music that it plays like 10, 12 hours. And it's copyright, royalty free. It's for creators. It's for you to utilize. And it's in YouTube Music Studio. For those who I've been all through there. There are just thousands upon thousands of just magnificent battle hymns, whether it be Espanola, Celtic, Kurd, just tons. I mean, just the most magnificent, beautiful, awe-inspiring. The frequency of it is even so mellow. Besides the melodramatic, just so melancholy. It's just like I pulled up Dave Matthews Band. They have a number of jams I could have played, royalty free, no copyright. Just absolutely beautiful music. I mean, if you're really having a day and you want to relax, go to YouTube Music Studio and just key in royalty free, no copyright. That's the stuff that I use, y'all. Now you might get something that doesn't say that, but it says background music. It's the same thing because I had to ask and they replied. So every time I see copyright on one of my videos, I'm like, what's going on? First, let me say this. I actually know somebody who worked at YouTube. I mean, at Facebook and also worked at YouTube. Some of those guys don't get paid a lot of money. I mean, 23, 25,000. Eat crappy. Some of the places where they have to work look like I was like if you was back in Desert Storm working out one of those little sheds. And they're not the most knowledgeable people. And that's not beating down on them. And I had to change the heart of how I was going at and saying things. They're paid to do a job with no questions asked. And I was allowing my emotions to get the best of me. Now, yes, there have been a lot of things that come through, very upsetting and blood curling or stomach nauseating. Those are things that slip through because there's certain parties that there are certain things going on that most people can't even communicate or say there. And not everybody that works at YouTube deals with all these things. Even the people who are there to make sure that everything that is uploaded, and we don't upload, we want to speak truth to light. But there are little groups, and not every group does the same thing, who maybe they're paid a little more to target us, which is sad. Same thing with YouTube. We always say algorithm, yes, but there's still people at work, fact checkers for one. I had to put their pictures up. I didn't put all of them. And they're all foreigners. How can they tell us about our world here on our soil? And I still stand strong in that regard, that anytime they go with that fact checking stuff, and I know real history, and I know I'm 2 times older than the majority of them, I'm not going to settle with it. That's why they don't do a whole lot of fact checking. They attempt to fact check stuff, and it's bias. Because however you feel for whatever party you do, it's not their business to interfere. Because if that's the case, then that shows you that politicians, corporations are no good. They hide behind the guys. And we all know what some of the platforms are being used for. It ain't for tyranny or terrorism. And that's the opposite of what's happening. It's to gather as much information as possible. Like the strike that they have me on right now, the run that goes off on November 17th. They should have removed it. I shared that video, like it was a recorded video I had, with about 20 people, and they were like, are they mad? When you have something that strikes the core of certain people's feelings, remember, we're not the feeling police. We've been removing our feelings for a long time, if they have not been paying attention. And that's to their disregard. That's not no disregard to anybody or threats, but that's not to their advantage. If they was really as smart and as keen as they proclaim, And I believe maybe the custodian, maybe those above want to see what comes from that. And that's disturbing. But I had to change your heart. Most time when you end up in Facebook jail is the narrative that we put out there. It's because somebody's reporting it, and it's not always somebody that works for them, but it could be another agency. There are third and fourth parties. And they come in, work with certain Facebook and little parking lots and stuff like that, and then they go. Just like that. I'm going to say this, and I hope y'all don't take it personal. And if you do, good. Stop giving them attention and keep doing what you're doing. If you're worried about your account getting deactivated or deleted, where was it 14 years ago? And if you cannot consummate this information with people around you, then what's the purpose of knowing it? So today we'll be reading from FLATLANTIS. It's a book. For those who have not been here, this is by Eric Dubé. You can go and pull it up. You can order it. It's not that expensive. And it has a slough full of information. Now, the other book that I should literally be reading with this one should be. But I said I would read this one halfway between the last few books I'm going to read. So I plan on doing this for a while. And I started off with this one. If anybody remember this, and I actually told people about North Carolina, I used to visit this little bridge that's thousands of years old. Because, you know, we have a lot of new Indians who want to say, we ran around wearing buckskin and deers. No, we dressed in clothes. We don't run around with no buckskin. We had shoes. That was ceremonial, to be without and not perverse. We were righteous people. A righteous people, divinity upon us. This book right here is magnificent. As you can see, it's by Louis Agassiz, and it's Geological Sketches, Volume 1. I have Volume 2 and all the way to 4. Excellent. I've pretty much read the whole thing, and it's not punctuated the best, but we're not Nazi grammar. We're not grammar Nazis. And I hate saying that because Nazis weren't really all that bad. I should be reading that along with this one, but this book is so small. It's short. I mean, I could have still interred some of the information there. Interred, you know what that means, right? Anyway, I just chose to just go ahead and read this and bring this against Navigate Across the Ice Walls or Nos Confundum, and the other one, Terra Infinita. That illuminates a little light. So that way you can get a picture. Because when you think of Owlman, now the drawings and pictures I'm showing you is not even oblong, it's one-sided. When you see this, right, that's more or less the center of the earth. And we want to say that, some of us want to say that, the ones I converse with, that the tree is not so much metaphysical, but a metaphor. Well, actually, the tree is real, and it's not above the earth. It's the tree like a root in the heavens. We're in the heavens. Now, who's to say it wasn't chopped down or that it doesn't exist? Remember perspective, what I've been teaching you about distance? Me and Vulture's Road looking through a Saxon, and seeing like 300-400 miles, seeing a whole bunch of flotillas of ships that we couldn't see nowhere around us, and the level was still flat, sea level. There's a reason why we can't go to certain places. And it's funny how all these countries are supposed to be fighting now, and yet they all have an agreement for the Antarctic and the North Pole. People are a pawn in a very, you think about it for yourself. There's something going on that should not be happening. All right, so let's get into this reading.
Potential spam.
They got issues. Anyway, let's go take it from here. The evidence that in ancient Hellenic thought, also the heaven of the gods was in the northern sky is identical. But cumulative and satisfactory. For example, heaven is upheld by Atlas. Read this and we're going to pick it up from here. But the terrestrial station of Atlas, as we have elsewhere shown, is at the North Pole. Again, Olympus was the abode of the gods. But if the now, remember Jacob's ladder, and supposedly it was hidden? Okay. But if the now generally occurrent etymology of this term is correct word, Olympus was simply the Atlantean pillar, and pictured as a lofty mountain and supported the sky at its northern pole. In fact, many writers now affirm that the Olympus of Greek mythology was dismiss that word mythology because it's used in concurrence to everything backwards, reverse, upside down, inverted, was originally simply the North Polar world mountain of the Asiatic nations. We are Asiatic, y'all. That means original, just like Ab. Doesn't mean Asian, Chinese, Japanese, new 1600 terms as far as the etymologies of new words go, and placement of individuals from elsewhere. Not enemies. Remember that. Dr. William Warren, Paradise Found, The Cradle of the Human Race at the North Pole. You can purchase that book. I have it on the way. Gods always face north. And in the Scandinavian Eddas, both Asgard and Idalvar are represented as the navel or center of the world. For them, atop, because you gotta remember the center is the balance. Center of the world. For them, atop the YGGDSR ASIL, that's Drazel, so it's, I can't pronounce that first word. I should call my brother Paul Osteen and ask him, but it's, I guess, Gisdrel tree at Earth's center was the heavenly Asgard, home of, and that's why YGG is Asgard, but it's pronounced different in their term, in their language. Center was the heavenly Asgard, home of the gods. Today, we still pay respect to this primitive tradition at Christmas when we top our symbolic royal tree with a bright yellow pole star. And that's why I have no problem putting up a damn Christmas tree and decorating the fuck out of it. No, I don't. I have no problem. No, my Hebraic brethren, none at all. Get out of that religious dichotomy of stupidity. And we don't have to either. It keeps division. There's nothing that will rob or desanctify you. Unless you're so scripted in. Then you're like the rest of the world. And I had to put quotations around this. We have already seen that the term navel was anciently used in many languages for center, and that the pole or central point of the revolving constellations was the navel of heaven. But as to the celestial pole there corresponds a terrestrial one. Terrestrial, y'all. Remember what terrestrial stands for, right? Okay. Anyway, but as to the celestial pole there corresponds a terrestrial one. So it is only natural that to the term the navel of heaven, there should be the corresponding navel of heaven, tree, placenta, umbilical cord, life. There should be the corresponding expression, the navel of the earth. Beginning with Christian traditions, let us make a pilgrimage to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre at Jerusalem. There, in the portion belonging to the Greek Christians, we shall discover a round pillar, some 2 feet high, protecting from the marble pavement, but supporting nothing. If we inquire as to its purpose, we shall be informed that it is designed to mark the exact center or navel of the earth, early pilgrims, and is not over there in Palestine. That should explain more about what Ye was talking about. I've been there. I've never seen people eat so many ham sandwiches and sexy, no disrespect. Anyway, we should be informed. If we inquire as to its purpose, we shall be informed that it is designed to mark the exact center or navel of the earth. Early pilgrims and chronicles refer to this curious monument but its antiquity no one knows. Dr. William Warren, Paradise Found, the cradle of the human race at the North Pole. In the Indian Puranas, both the terms navel of the earth and navel of heaven are used repeatedly and always referring to a place not in or near India, but rather at the North Pole. Hymns from the Rig Veda, I think Vegeta, Dragon Ball Z, Rig Veda, speak of the supporting column of heaven, otherwise known as the Atlas Pillar of Vedic cosmology, and describe it as standing upon the navel of earth. In the 5th verse of the 185th hymn, day and night are represented as twin sisters in the bosom of their parents, heaven and earth. Swastika, yin and yang, pale wolf, dark wolf. Oh, there's so much. Where they lock arms and spin circles around a common center point, namely the navel. This is also echoed in a mysterious passage by Aquinas Curtis, which has baffled modern commentators, stating how the object which represented the divine being resembled a navel set in gems. If anything is needed to disprove the common notion that geographical ignorance and national self-esteem first governed the ancient peoples in location in their own countries, navels of the earth, it is furnished by what is, in all probability, the oldest epic in the world, that of Is-Dubar, fragments of which have survived in the oldest literature of Babylonia. These fragments show that the earliest inhabitants of the Tigro-Euphrates basin located the center of the earth, not in their own midst, but in a far-off land of sacred associations, where the holy house of the gods, you hear that? Center of the earth, okay. The holy house of the gods is situated, a land into the heart whereof man hath not penetrated. And that's why I said, remember Godzilla and Kong, the new one? Kong sitting among a throne, surrounded with the fallen bodies of Megasaurus and his kin alike, with a special element. Remember Noah, the lie of Noah, and how they started fires with this certain thing from the heavens that was upon the soil. Like when I said the Navajo used to go around collecting and picking up uranium right off the ground here. Many died from the cancer, for it was not meant for them to handle or touch. A place, listen to this. The holy house of the gods is situated a land into the heart whereof man hath not penetrated, a place underneath the overshadowing world tree and beside the full waters. No description could more perfectly identify the spot with the Arctic pole of ancient Asiatic mythology, dismissed mythology. Now, how many of y'all remember I was on Facebook? Matter of fact, when we first able to post, I was posting pictures of all these different caves and forests up under the soil, yeah. And now there's like 3 of them, like one in China, one over in Europe, one supposedly over here somewhere, where you can go into the cave and walk down and see trees and all the earth, and it goes down, and it's just the perfect weather in there. There's animals. No description could more perfectly identify the spot with the Arctic pole of ancient Asiatic mythology. Yet this testimony stands not alone, for in the fragment of another ancient text translated by Sayce in Records of the Past, S-A-Y-C-E, Records of the Past, we are told of a dwelling which the gods created for the first human beings, a dwelling in which they became great and increased in numbers, and the location of which is described in words exactly corresponding to those of Iranian, Indian, Chinese, Asiatic, and Aztec literature, namely in the center of the earth. Dr. William Warren, again, Paradise Found, okay? The cradle of the human race at the North Pole. Excuse me. Among the ancient Inca subjects of Peru was found the same idea of a navel of the earth. Remember the rebel flag? the Fighting 68, the original people of Alabama and around, the Silo, Black Line, you know, our flag. We migrated from that direction because where did we really come from? But we knew all of the earth. And you see who usurped and took our little thing. I used to call the Sons of Confederacy, and I used to hit them hard with certain bullet points, and they would just sit there, I guess, with their mouth open. They couldn't respond. And I said, I would tell them, the majority of y'all came here in the 1920s and 40s. You ain't going to tell me that 20,000, 10,000 arriving here in 19, and 18, 17, and this, that, and the other, and 17 is going to be able to fight the war that we had. We outnumbered them damn near 20 to 1. Among the ancient Inca subjects of Peru was found the same idea of a navel of the earth, and even among the Chickasaws, my people, I am Chickasaw, who was of the Chata of the Yama Nation, on my father's side. Lily Wooten and James Henry Wooten, Trail of Tears, which that's not the real name of it, of Mississippi. Thus, in all ancient thought, full of this legendary idea of a mysterious primeval holy paradisic earth center, a spot is connected as is no other with the center of heaven, the paradise of God. Why it should be so no one has ever told us, but the hypothesis which places the biblical Eden at the pole and makes all latter earth navels commemorative of that primal one affords a perfect explanation. In the light of it, there is no difficulty in understanding the earth center in Jerusalem with which we began. They just want you not to pay attention to Judah. Difficulty in understanding the earth center in Jerusalem with which we began. The inconspicuous, I can't get the word right, inconspicuous pillar in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre symbolizes and commemorates far more than the geographical ignorance of medieval ages. It stands for the Japanese pillar, which there was no such thing at the time, by which the first soul born upon earth mounted to the sky. It stands for the world column of the East Aryans, Negroid race of people, and the Chinvat bridge of Iran. It stands for the law-proclaiming pillar of Orichalcum in Atlantis. That's why whenever I see somebody tell me I'm Caucasian, I look at them like, no, you are not. And sometimes I just walk right by them as if they don't even exist. Anyway, placed in the center of the most central land, it stands for that Talmudic pillar by means of which the tenants of the terrestrial paradise mount to the celestial, and having spent the Sabbath, return to pass the week below. Now, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to pull something up. So here, let me read this again. Place, because this is what shows you what Yi was talking about. It's facts. I'm going to show you right now. Placed in the center of the most central land, it stands for that Talmudic pillar. Now, anybody ever read the Talmud? I did. And those of us know it was written somewhere in the late 18, early 1900s, right? Pillar by means of which the tenants of the terrestrial paradise mount to the celestial. Well, tenets is what? The tenets, like reading, something taught, right? The Hebrew term Talmud, study or learning, commonly refers to a compilation of ancient teachings regarded as sacred and normative, and it says by Jews, but we're going to eradicate that. From the time it was compiled, because they're not who they are, compiled into modern times and still so regarded by traditional religious Jews. So Do y'all know, have you ever seen the Talmud? Seen when it was written and by whom? Very perverse, has nothing to, and that's just Talmud saying you must learn from this. That's all that means. That Talmud is not the Talmud. Talmud is a meaning. If you want to know what the etymology is, the definition. And there we go. All right, let's carry on. It symbolizes Cardo Atlas. Meru. Hera has nothing to do with Moors. Hera, Berzati, Kazakh, Karu, and every fabulous mountain on whose top the sky pivots itself, and around which all the heavenly bodies ceaselessly revolve. It perpetuates a religious symbolism which existed in this region before ever Jerusalem had been made the Hebrew capital, recalling to our modern world the Tabor Haretz of a period anterior to the days of Samuel. In tradition, it is said to mark the precise spot whence the clay was taken, out of which the body of Adam was modeled. It does so, but it does it in a language and method which were common to all the most ancient nations of the earth. It points not to the soil in which it stands, but to the holier soil of a far away primitive Eden. Dr. William, again, Warren, Paradise Found, the cradle of the human race at the North Pole. Now, you can, like I said, you can order this book, okay? And you can see when it was printed, all rights reserved, 2020. When it was first in edict, that means first created, and where references and resources, you can all pull all that up, which is used in this. And that's the beautiful thing about this, even the drawings and everything. And that's why I just adore this book. But when you're reading, you must be able to chew the fruit and spit the seeds. And that's one of the main things you must always do. And I'm not beating on this book. I'm not being dismissive. Jew is a term. It's utilized. I always say that it's new creation, yet it is old. The problem is it belongs. Fred, what's his name? What's called Himmler, the one that wrote the book, the 13th Tribe. They murdered him. They're not the real people, and there's millions who have stated this of their own. So what is the issue? Well, you're dealing with a corporation who knows who we are, and everybody must remain ignorant because they also know something else, to which the majority of you don't know. No, that's all my opinion. Okay, let's clarify this. The thing is, you must read to be edified. You must seek discernment in self, not outside of self. Someone might say, you're reading a book. Well, what else am I supposed to read? I have to learn how to tap into myself to know that which is hidden before me because of all the corruption liable to me. Now, in Freemasonic temples, on Freemasonic tracing boards, and upon Freemasonic aprons can be found symbolism pointing to these concepts, namely a flat earth framed by pillars, covered by an arch firmament, which I know, I still have my uncles, all this crap, okay? Pointing to these concepts, namely a flat earth framed by pillars covered by an arch firmament, often with the tallest or most prominent pillars positioned centrally and a single eye. And I'll show you this in a minute. Presenting Polaris situated above it, the sun and moon are also usually shown on either side representing their paths, positions, over and around the flat earth. This knowledge was clearly widespread among the ancient world, but in modern times has become occulted by certain such secret societies and vested interests. Everywhere, therefore, in the most ancient ethnic thoughts, in the Egyptian, Akkadian, Assyrian, Babylonian, Indian, Persian, which they were not Indians, they were Hindustan, they were Ethiopians, see? Chinese didn't exist at the time, and Greek, which they were not called Greek, they were called Grecians. All right, everywhere is encountered this concept of what looked at with respect to its base and magnitude is called the mountain of the world, but looked at with respect to its glorious summit and its celestial inhabitants is styled the mountain of the gods. We need not pursue the investigation further. Enough has been said. to warrant the assertion by Dr. Samuel Beal, B-E-A-L, Dr. Samuel Beal. Remember that, look him up. It is plain that this idea of a lofty, central primeval mountain belonged to the undivided human race. Undivided human race. Undivided human race. Elsewhere, the same learned sinologue has said, I have no doubt that the idea of a central mountain and of the rivers flowing from it and the abode of the gods upon its summit is a primitive myth derived from the earliest traditions of our race. Dr. William Warren Paradise found the cradle of human civilization, our race, at the North Pole. In concluding this sketch of ancient cosmology, one further questions naturally and inevitably thrusts itself upon us. It is this how are the rise and the so wide diffusion of this singular world view to be explained? In other words, how came it to pass that the ancestors of the oldest historic races and peoples agreed to regard the North Pole as the true summit of the earth and the circumpolar sky as the true heaven? Again, Dr. Williams Paradise found. So I will show you that and then show you the Masonic. And then tomorrow we'll pick up early polar history and exploration. And then here in a little bit, about an hour and 20 minutes, I'll be right back on to discuss Terra Infinita, Nos Conformos. For those of you who have subscribed newly, appreciate the subscription, and let's keep growing. And I've got so much to share. And let's give shout outs, and I'm gonna relax and listen to some music, and I'll be back. Rondo, what's going on, family? Golden Cobra. Hey, Etta. Holly, Matthew Cooper. Yes, and cotton as well. Yes. Yes. More than tobacco, hemp, a whole lot of. I mean, weed. The whole. There's so many different kind of mushrooms, things that aren't even around no more. Well, we're going to learn a lot more about that, Golden Cougar. We're going to learn a lot more. Just hold your horse. Hold on to your hat and hold on to your horses. All right? And you heard what I repeated 3 or 4 times, right? There's a force, ominous, nefarious, that has separated everybody, and then some people aren't from this land. That's just a fact. That I'll hold on to. All right? And I will see y'all in an hour and a half. Be ready. All right? I shall be back. Love you all. Ladies, gents, you already know.